Anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack H.M. Wong.
Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. I'm your host, Jack. Now, this time we have a very exciting guest, and her name is Neha Gupta. And let me just introduce who Neha is. She is the founder of Elite Private Tutors and College Shortcuts. And she has helped over 14,000 students globally to get them into the college of their dreams. With a success rate of 95% of students getting into the top 3 choices, she has gotten students in every Ivy League and top 50 college. She is a passionate entrepreneur. She loves what she does and has created a business that creates impact and serves the future leaders of tomorrow. And of course, she has been featured in ABC, NBC, and Washington Post, and many more. So welcome, Neha. Welcome to our show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
And your background is you are an educator. So can you share with us why you decided to do this? What was your school life when you were a student?
Absolutely. So for me, my parents were brought up in India and they moved to the US. And the one thing they always said was that education is your golden ticket. So, and I know a lot of audience members will probably feel the same way about education, that it's very important. So I was brought up, really as an overachiever. I always made A's and I was very driven and motivated.
Okay.
So for me, I really enjoyed competing really with myself to see how good I could get. And I think it also relates to entrepreneurship in a lot of ways. It's about, how much hard work and determination do you have and what types of standards do you set for yourself? So eventually what happened was I was a teenager and I started to tutor kids, and I really fell in love with it. I was very passionate about it. I loved it. And so what ended up happening was I still took jobs that were corporate for a little while. And then eventually I realized that my side hustle of tutoring really had to become my full-time because it's what I love doing.
Right.
And so I really enjoy it. And then also I help kids to really combat, any of the questions they have around their self-worth or any of their motivation issues they have. And I tell them, really there's a strategy behind anything. One of the best parts is that a lot of kids change their belief systems, they change their mindset. And these are important things to learn at a younger age because changing these as an adult is so much harder. Where if you're surrounded by negative people or if you have negative beliefs about yourself, like, oh, I can't do that, or I'm bad at X subject, this stuff comes up later. So for me, I really was passionate about helping to inspire these kids to dream very big and to know that they deserve anything they want in their life.
I see. And you know what? The previous episode, I have actually got a guest who is an expert of helping adults, not the teenagers or the younger kids, but adults to overcome fear and self-doubt. So have these people been through your program? They may not need to address the fear and self-doubt severely when they grow up. So this is what I believe you have done. Fantastic job, because this group of people, like I have kids, and my kids are actually 17, 13, and 12. And you were from India, so partly you understand the Asian education system. It is very British style. You either make it or you break it. So I can relate to what you said about, like, if I were the parents which really want to help my kids to be successful, do I let them go through the education system and let them survive? I'm not sure whether they will thrive, or would they be able to get some help by people like you, helping them to actually raise the self-esteem. Is that my youngest daughter actually has very low self-esteem because she has been beaten up, she has been bullied in school, and every single day before I sent her for some help, her self-esteem is so low that I've had to admit to her that she at one point thought about committing suicide. I'm not kidding.
So sorry.
Yeah, it's okay because
Yeah,
I'm a very transparent parent because I do not mind telling people that this is the kind of Asian education system that a lot of us have to go through ourselves and now our kids. So I feel
absolutely.
that your work actually helped a lot to make this world a better place. So for that, I have
Yes.
to congratulate you for taking this path. And
Thank you. You know, it's interesting you say this because I
right,
just did I'm about to release in about a few weeks a talk about how to overcome loneliness.
right,
And it talks a lot about my story at a young age and how I had experienced bullying and then how I really began to feel very lonely. And how in children we keep seeing over and over this loneliness, you know, not having a tribe or a village around these kids, it causes a lot of issues because, you know, Asian cultures are very specific. We know that it takes a village to raise a child. We don't grow up typically in isolated homes like they do in America. So Asian cultures are very accepting of getting tutors, consultants, people to work with their children because they know, you know, they know how the game works. And they also know it's great to not just always have it come from the parent because it's amazing how a mentor a few steps ahead or someone who feels like an elder sibling can say like, hey, I was bullied too. I had to transfer 3 different schools and, you know, I never felt like I fit in. And, you know, that's okay. Like, let's get through this and let's keep going. And, you know, I think it's really important. It sounds like what I do run is a educational firm. And yes, we do help kids get good grades. But underneath all of it, it's about how do we help kids realize that schools are lucky to have them and that, right?
yes,
Like I tell kids they apply to college and they'll say, oh, I hope I get in. And I'm like, they're lucky if they get you.
right.
And this is the kind of mentorship and conversation these kids need to hear because they build all their self-esteem thinking if I don't get into this school, then I'm not worth anything. And that's a problem because that's like saying if I apply to this one job as an adult or if I try this one entrepreneurship project and I fail, then I'm never meant to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I see.
Right?
Because the systems is set in such a way that I have to chase for the top class or else I would be deemed a failure. It's kind of like saying that a metaphor, okay, if I can't go to Harvard or Oxford, I will be a failure for the rest of my life. I mean, honestly,
Right.
this is not true. Like, I didn't come from a very famous university. My kids are not going for the famous school or the top schools in Singapore. But that doesn't mean they are failure. So to me, chasing for a brand, but let's imagine if they go for a branded school, but because it's so competitive and they can't fit the system, the culture, and the people around them, they will not be able to survive anyway. So what's the point of chasing for the fame?
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
understand that.
Yeah, so a big thing I do is I make sure that families, whether they're located in Asia or America, we work with students all over the globe, but it's about finding the right fit for that child. Because you're a dad of 3. So can you imagine if you use the exact same strategy of all 3 kids, exactly the same in building their college list and push them all to go to the exact same college?
No way.
No way, right? Your
No
third
way.
kid is definitely
They
different than
are
your
all
first kid, right?
different.
And that's the big mistake a lot of parents make. They're like, oh, I've already done this before. I'm like, hold on. It's very different with each child
Yes.
because they all want different things and their personality is, my gosh, right? They're
Yeah.
completely different humans. So some parenting styles work on one kid and they totally blow up with the second one.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to go through the business side of what you do later. I still have like 1 or 2 points about the helping the kids because somehow I relate this part very well as a father of 3. And I just want to say one more thing about like how I manage my 3 kids. Like you said, I do not apply the same style to all of them because they are all different. I mean, just share with you, my eldest son and my younger daughter, they are considered like street smart. They are not book smart. Whereas my middle one is a very book smart. Can you imagine if I apply the same strategies to all 3? One will shine in the system, the other 2 will be failure. I want to make sure that's the case. The second point that I want to make is that while in Singapore, I mean, I'm not talking about politics, but it's very sad that while Singapore to a lot of people outside may believe that it's a very nice country, people are well behaved, and the government did say that at one time that all schools are good schools. So don't worry about which schools your kid goes to. But the sad truth of the fact is that when they become adult, the employers will ask you, which school are you from? So the problem is that the system is set in such a way that the employers eventually would still look at the paper where the person comes from. And I think there's a crack in the system right now.
That is the same in the United States as well.
Right. There's still a lot of work, Neha, you have to do. I can imagine.
I know. There's so much work. And then, of course, there's also the entrepreneurs like Gary Vee and other ones that say college is totally useless. But that is a whole nother topic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a university professor. I mean, can you imagine?
Okay.
And that being said, when people say the traditional education system is not working well, I have a moment of silence because in my mind, I say if the system is not working, then why would I be teaching university? I mean, I bring my value to the university system by basically giving the students the real world experience of what it's like in the consulting area. Does serve certain purposes, but we need the right people to be in the system to do the job. That's my belief. So thank you for that. So I need to transition to the business part because to start a business like this, having the system or the infrastructural restriction, having the parents' objection, I mean, even the kids may not want to change. I can imagine that the life of you as an entrepreneur may not be a smooth ride. How would you describe your entrepreneurship journey?
Okay. I would say it's like a roller coaster.
That's very common. That's very common.
Yeah. So it's like there are times where it feels like we're riding the high part.
Yes.
And then there's times where we're running the low part. I am a very systems oriented, get things done type.
Okay.
So for me, it's always been consistent in finding the right people by your side, which that can make or break a business. When I started running my company at the beginning, I was a one-woman show. And then eventually I started to hire out for different pieces of the business, whether it's scheduling and operations, accounting department, sales, advertising and marketing, graphic design, video, right? That's a lot of different hats to wear.
Yep.
So eventually when you start to get a certain amount of revenue, it's about reinvesting it back in, but also it's about finding the right people that believe in what you're doing, because there are going to be times when you're tired as the leader and you need your team to be there for you during those times. So I have been one to always hire what I call a player. Early on I didn't, and it really hurts the business when you don't hire an A player. But when I hire A players, for example, even my tutors, we'll go through about 100 resumes to hire one tutor. That's a lot of resumes to go through before making a decision to hire someone. Yeah. And then also I take referrals really seriously. You know, one of the big hacks I would tell an entrepreneur is ask your other friends who are entrepreneurs if they have someone that they're not utilizing fully that you can share. Because a lot of these people are well trained and they're already trained by another entrepreneur. So they already understand how that is. So a lot of my entrepreneur friends will share some of our resources with each other. You know, you have to have a close relationship with your other friends that you don't take the person, but it's about like, if no one is using that one person full time, then that person can have a few clients. So it's things like that about finding the right people to then execute your system. You need to find the right people because the people are what makes the company. So in my case, I found hiring from certain websites that can be really helpful. Like, you know, there's a lot of different websites, but I used to use Odesk. That was way back in the day. And then also ask other entrepreneur friends that aren't utilizing their team members. A lot of people will be willing to share their resources or they know somebody. I found some of the best people just by putting out a Facebook post, which sounds unbelievable, but my own network itself was so strong that people want to support you. I would say that's really important, is finding the right people to execute the system that you build.
So listener, listen to what Neha just said. The resources are always everywhere. My listeners have this challenge that posed to me. So they say, well, you know what? Just now, Neha, you mentioned that in an example you gave is like, imagine your tutor has to look for like 100 resumes in order to find one A player. So the objection from the listener is that, hey, you know what? To find a one A player requires me to look at 100 resumes. Where do I find the time? And incidentally, my client said, I'm so busy working on different projects, and do you not even have the time to look for these resumes? So that's why he said, that's the reason why I couldn't find any people.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I have entrepreneur friends that pretty much don't have a life because they've chosen to, instead of taking the 3 to 4 to 5 hours to find the right person and hire them, they're spending all their time doing what I call low-level work. So that's your trade-off. Either you can have an excuse that says, oh, I can't find them, which to me is just, I'm not prioritizing my time well.
Yep.
Or you spend a few hours, which it's not a never-ending task, to find someone that it would be their pleasure to do these types of tasks for you that you hate doing already.
So talking about the team you have built over the years, like you were able to find the A player to join your team, how would you convince a person to join your team?
Absolutely. So when they work with me, first of all, it is very fun to work for a company that is what most people call a startup that is making impact. We're giving back. We've built a school in Africa. We give back to Vitamin Angels. So a lot of people love what we call these social entrepreneurship ventures. There's not a lot of convincing. When someone takes a look and sees what we're doing for children, they're already really excited about what we do. So it's hard for me to answer that question. If I was running a company, and I've actually only run companies that do have a social impact. So that's why they're not that many of us, actually. There's a good amount of us, but there's a lot of companies that are just focused on making money. That, of course, is a component of any business. Otherwise, it's a charity, right? So I'm fine with that. But I would say that it's not really me needing to convince them to work with me. It's really more about them convincing me why I should hire them. And I don't mean to sound arrogant. It's more like the unemployment rate is high. So there's 100 other people that want this position. What is it that you have in your Rolodex? Who are the people that you know that I know? What are your references? Are they strong? And let's do a 2-week trial out to see together if we can work together.
Right. So it's kind of like, so the post is here. I have to explain to you or convince you instead. Like you convince me as to why I should be working in your team. This is a very interesting proposition. But I do recognize one thing. I'm not sure whether you see that. So what I see just now was that, hey, there are organizations who actually are very money driven. Yours is not so money driven, but yes, you need money to keep the business going. I do see that if a person who is interested in joining your team, probably because the person share the vision and the mission of your company. And that's why naturally will attract these people to make inquiry as to whether they can serve your team. So that is the way I see that just now when you share with me the way you recruit people. I don't know. I always say that a big business thrive not because of the amount of money they make, it's because they serve a very big purpose. And the purpose, if they have the right track, serve more people, the money is always the result of doing the right thing at the right time.
I totally agree with that.
I always believe that. So thank you. So how about your 10-year goals? You said you have achieved last year. So can you share with us a bit more about that?
This is a great one.
Yes.
So last year I was at a conference and they had put together an organization called World Teacher Aid. It's basically 40 entrepreneurs that came together to build schools in Africa. Now, I always wanted to build a school overseas, and that's actually based on my ancestry. My grandfather built one of the first universities in India that gave free education to women. So education is really run through my family very extensively, not just me starting this, but all the way back generations. And so I lost my father when I was a teenager. And so last year I partnered with all of these people to build this school, and I named a classroom after my father's name. Yeah. And he used to bring teachers from India to the U.S. to further education in areas of the U.S. where no one wanted to go be a teacher. So smaller villages in the U.S., places that most teachers don't want to work. He was bringing these incredible math and science teachers. So you can see there was so much educational lineage. And so for me, I wanted to build this classroom in his name. So that was my 10-year goal, was how do I give back at a level that's much larger than just tutoring and test prep and getting kids into college. It's all of these clients that we worked with have now contributed to kids in Africa getting an education. To me, if I can have eventually in my lifetime 100 schools built, that would be incredible.
That's a very excellent goal. And first of all, congratulations. And you're working on this process. That's why I always said to my guests, there's no accident why you are here. because you have a very big message that you need to share and let more people know about it. So congratulations, really, from the bottom of my heart. Okay, so let's talk about what else, like in your business, because you mentioned that your entrepreneurship journey is a roller coaster ride. So when you feel down, what would you do to keep yourself up?
Yes. So one little acronym I always have is CEO means Chief Emotional Officer, because I have to maintain my own emotions
Okay.
and then I have to maintain the emotions of my entire team. So to me, like if I can't get my own self in check, it is really hard to run a company. Some of the things that happen that result in me getting lower is one, and these sound like simple things, but if I don't move my body, whether it's a workout or something, I will start to see a lowering of my emotions. Second is meditation. If I have that in my life, I'm a much nicer person and I'm connected to myself. So no matter what fire comes my way as an entrepreneur, I know that it's happening for a reason and I will make it through it. And then three, I think the big thing for me is sometimes what happens is I hustle and I grind so hard because I care so much about what I'm doing that I forget about all the other parts of my life. And so what'll happen is I'll go through an up period in my business work-wise, but then I'll experience a burnout and then I'll start to crash and burn. So I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I'm a young entrepreneur. So, you know, I think as you get older, you tend to steady out a little more and you get a little more moderate in your work life because you have other things like if you're married or you have children and, you know, there's more balance required. And, you know, people want you around and they need you around. It's very important.
Yeah.
So I think in my world, for a lot of the starting entrepreneurs, you know, if there's something I would say is entrepreneurship is like running like a mega marathon. It is not a 5K race. So you have to be willing to take the time. And actually, it's okay if it takes a little longer than, you know, being on the cover of Forbes magazine. It's really more about the long game. And I think that was one thing I didn't realize, even though my parents were entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I still kept trying to overachieve, be the all A student, be the best. I truly believe that it is a long game. So that's what I talk about when you go in the low points. For me, I'm such an overachiever, and I think it's definitely like an Asian thing for me that if I'm not hitting certain goals, I don't feel like I'm at a high point. But if I look at where I was, even like, I know this sounds crazy, even 12 months ago, if I look at where I was versus where I am now, that in itself for most people is like a 3 or 4 year incremental growth that I do in a 12-month period.
Yeah, so because you're talking about your overachiever style and you're always competing with yourself and you continue raising your bars, so I can understand because for me, I don't consider myself an overachiever, but I'm definitely an achiever, so I can relate to that. And you said one thing which I just relate to one question I asked another guest. I asked her the question, is there such a thing called work-life balance? She said to me very nicely, yes, there is a work-life balance. And I asked her, so what exactly is work-life balance? And she said, work-life balance is not what the Asians understand. It's not you just work, and have a life. It's not that. It's about knowing your priorities, knowing other commitments that you have to fulfill, and strike a balance amongst those commitments. And that's the definition of work-life balance. Okay, it sounds great, which is what you said. It's true because if you are go-getters, you just keep on moving, then you ignore other aspects of your life. So, which means that could be a challenge. Like I'm 49 years old, I can't possibly be a goal achiever every single day. I have 3 kids to handle, I have my family, I have other people I have to take care of. So I can relate to that absolutely. So thank you for reiterating this point.
Absolutely. And I like Gary Vee's message for people that need to get up and do work.
Yes.
But for people that are overachievers, his message of like working nonstop, I don't think is doable. It's not for me. I mean, I look at him and I hear about how his life is. And to me, that's not balanced. If you're coming home at 11 o'clock at night and you have a child, I mean, I say as someone who has been working for over 15 years in this industry of going and seeing people's marriages and dynamics and how the kid is raised and how it affects their education, you better believe it. A parent not around definitely affects that child's development. Totally agree with you on the work-life balance. I think one word I like to use, and it's just definitely something I think a lot of Asians can relate to. How do I create harmony in my life?
Ooh, I love the harmony thing.
You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? Like,
of
if
course, of
life is,
course.
right? Because balancing is saying one is up, one is down. I have to balance. It means you're
Yes.
never even. But if you have harmony, first of all, it's a better word.
Yeah.
But second of all, it feels different in your body when you say, how do I have harmony with my work and my life and my priorities and my health and my spirituality and my family life and my love life? How do I create harmony in that? It's more beautiful to me.
Sounds great. Thank you for sharing. And for me, I think of the other word called synergy because I believe 1+1 is 4. So we look at our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So if we can have harmony, we can deal with all 4 aspects nicely. That's my,
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so it's coming to almost the end of the podcast show. I usually will have 2 last questions. So it is always a ritual that the second last question is I will ask my guest to give us the number 1 quote the guest can share with our audiences. So Neha gave this one. So let me just say it out loud first. You said, business that succeed are simple and not sexy. They are wash, rinse, and repeat. Find what works and do it over and over and over again. So why is this quote? Why do you choose this quote?
Yes. So a lot of people think when you do a business, it needs to be sexy or have this amazing idea or, things like that. To me, it really is just simple. And it is just wash, rinse, repeat. Because when you find the one thing you're successful at, just do that one thing. The number one problem people have over and over is they try to do 5 things at once or 4 projects at once. And you will never see an actual successful entrepreneur doing all 4 at the same time.
I
And
see.
even in my own business, we run a company that sells online courses on how to get into college, how to write your resume, how to write your essay, how to pick your major. We run a tutoring company, test prep company, college consulting company. There's a lot of services we offer. It's all within one realm, but we definitely focus heavily on the services that have the most impact and have the best in terms of our margins as well.
Yep.
And the other ones sometimes are just lead gen into that service. But you don't see me building a site about weight loss right now or a site about, how to run better. This is my lane and I stay in my lane and I like to do things one at a time. And I've even heard other entrepreneurs that'll say things like, until my business hits X amount of revenue, and it's at this level of size and it's really figured itself out that it doesn't need me, then I won't start the next project. And I think it's the number one mistake people make. They're trying to do way too much at once, and that's not how you hit goals.
Yeah, that really reminds me Robert Kiyosaki, who talk about having a diversified portfolio. And a lot of people actually misunderstand what is diversification. And Kiyosaki actually said diversification means that there are so many things I can do to generate passive income, but I will focus on one thing and one thing at that time until it can be sustained, it can drive, it can create passive income and you don't need me anymore. That's the time for you to move on to the other income stream to create another passive income. It's not like, okay, I'm going in, I need to invest in real estate, I need to invest in stock market, I need to invest business. That is my diversification. So this is not what diversification is about. Okay, so last question. I'm sure if you have been to other podcast shows, you know what's the last question is. How are we able to find out more about what you do? And where do I find out about your social media connection if we want to stay connected with you?
Absolutely. So one of the best ways to reach us is right on Facebook. Anywhere around the world can reach out to us. We have a send message button right on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/college shortcuts with an S. And they can find us right there. They can also find us at collegeshortcuts.com and also eliteprivatetutors.com. And they can also reach out to me through our phone number in the U.S. It's just 1-713-401-2867. Or they can email us at neha@eliteprivatetutors.com.
Excellent. So many ways to get in touch with you. So you know what, Neha, thank you very much for coming to our show and share with us your passion of helping so many teenagers and you are the angel that comes from universe for that reason, I believe.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that concludes this episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. And as you know, we are going to bring on another guest next time who is going to share with you the wisdom, the intelligence, and the experiences to help you take your business to the next level. Until we next meet, you know what? Jack here, and signing off now. Have a good day. Best wishes.
To continue cracking the entrepreneur code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneurcode.com. Learn more about author and host Jack H.M. Wong and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwong.com/apply.